Hi, this is Jennifer with Make My Heart Smile, and today I'd love for you to crochet along with me. Now, whether you're a new viewer or returning subscriber, welcome. This is part of a series of crochet lessons where I'm teaching beginner basic to easy to intermediate level crochet skills and techniques. So if you are not already familiar with the basics of crochet, I would recommend you go back and watch my lessons 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 and really become familiar and proficient with those crochet skills and stitches. And here's my little swatch of all the stitches we've been learning so far if you've been following along. Um, Chaining, single crochet, double crochet, half double crochets, double crochets, and triples or trebles. So we've been working back and forth, flat, in rows, and today we are going to move on. We are going to be looking at how to work in the round, and I'm going to talk about a couple ways that you can get started in working in the round. And working in the round basically means that instead of working rows back and forth, we're going to be working rounds or rows in a circle. Really is basically what that means. Usually to make something that is three-dimensional. So as I've mentioned before, instead of making a scarf, let's say, you would want to make a hat. And so obviously a scarf is two-dimensional flat and a scarf is three-dimensional, right? So something like that. So that's our focus today. I'm going to show you different ways to get started. Magic circle is, I'm going to show you my method of how to make the magic circle, which is my preferred way of starting working in the round, any project that works in the round. Okay, so of course, first you're going to need your materials, scissors, a darning needle. You will need that because I'm going to, if you've noticed, I've got some hearts here. And for our little practice project, I'll show you that in a minute. Our practice project will be making some hearts. And so you will need some kind of darning needle that has a big eye and a blunt end. Plastic or metal will work just fine because I'm going to show you how to fasten off and weave in ends. And stitch markers, of course, always. And remember, if you don't have a stitch marker like this, I would recommend a paper clip or anything like that to mark your stitches to keep us organized and to keep our stitch count correct. And of course, through my tutorials, I've been using a size 6mm or letter J hook. Okay, so before we get started, actually, just a little bonus so I can get this out of the way. I know we've been talking about different kinds of yarn, and if you've been practicing, have you run out of yarn? Like, have you used up your entire skein, ball, however you want to say it? Have you used it all up and then thought, I don't have any more yarn like this to continue on with my project? If that's something that you've run into, then let's talk about that label again if you are a newbie. On a yarn label, or on the label, you will always see a lot number. Okay, the color, usually it's around what they tell you the color is. By the way, for my tutorials, I always recommend this tube yarn. Now, this is Michael's brand, Loops and Threads Cuddlecraft tube yarn. It's great for learning and doesn't fray or split. And so underneath where, or near where you will see the color, and in this case, I'm using Tangerine Tango today, you'll see a lot number. And so that is the die lot number. And if you have a project that you want to do and it says that you're going to need, let's say, 4 skeins of yarn, then you're going to have to make sure when you're purchasing it at the store that you are paying attention to that color and that each skein is that same die lot number. Okay, because if you are working along and then you attach some new yarn from a new ball and it's not quite the same dye lot number, then they might not match up. The colors might be a little bit different, and you might not notice it at first, but then your finished project will probably definitely show that. So make sure that when you're buying multiple balls of yarn that your lot number is the same for all of them. Okay, so that's just a little extra tip today. If you are already thinking about planning a project or have seen a project online that you would really love to make, I will show you in future lessons how to attach ends of yarn when you run out, so that you can continue on. But for today, I know you got your eyes on these hearts, and I wanted to talk about, we've already talked about in previous lessons about the size of the hook and how that changes things, and your thickness or weight of yarn changes things. Now, this is the same pattern I used to make these hearts. The exact same pattern I'm going to show you today, but obviously you can tell that they are not all the same size, are they? And that's because I used a different size hook and used different weight of yarn. So for this was a bulky, so this was a 5 or 6. This was a 6 bulky yarn, and I used an 8mm or letter L size hook for that. And so as you can see, same pattern, but a bigger heart. So then I moved to medium weight yarn. This is a 4. Both of these are 4, and these were just some scrap yarn I had, and I used a letter K 6.5mm crochet hook for these, and as you can see, those are a little bit more medium size. Okay, and then exact kind of yarn too, size, so this is a size 4 yarn, but instead of a 6.5, I moved down to a 5, and usually with a medium weight yarn of 4, your range of sizes of hooks can go from 5 to maybe even a 6. Okay, so as you can see, it's a slight difference, right? So smaller hook, smaller outcome. Okay, with the exact same weight yarn. Isn't that interesting? And this is the exact same pattern, okay, that I'm going to show you today. So it does affect things. And then this is also a size 4 weight yarn, but I did change the pattern on this one. I saved this little guy because I wanted to point out how the darker yarn, and this is navy blue, that darker yarn, it is harder to see your stitch definition. Okay, but I did change the pattern slightly on that one with a size 5 hook. And so I just wanted to show you that using a lighter color yarn does help in seeing your stitches when you're learning. So all that aside for now, let's talk about different ways that you can work in the round, because today's focus is on this easy crochet skill of making a magic circle and working in the round. Now, there are 2 different ways. You can start with a magic circle, which I will show you my method in just a moment, or you can simply chain 4 or 5 and then slip stitch to join. So that's an easier way that you'll probably see in crochet tutorials. So let me show you that. So if we made a slip knot as usual, as you learned, and again, if you have not been following along with my lessons or don't know how to make a slip knot, then I recommend you go back and watch those lessons 1, okay, or 2. All right, so if we chained, let's say 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, let's say 5. To make a ring, I could then simply, in that first stitch, make a slip stitch. And I know we've talked about that before, but that simply means you're slipping it in, so you're going all the way back, skipping all of these, and going back into that first chain, slipping it through there, and instead of pulling up, oops, see, it came off my hook, but no big deal. I hope you remember that tension's important, form is important, so I'm going to try that again. No need to get frustrated. Good learning moment. Okay, and if it comes off, we simply try again. So this time I'm going to make it a little bit looser. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and I'm going to skip all of these. I'm going to go right into that first chain, but instead of pulling up to like make a single crochet, no, we're just going to slip it. So there I've yarned over and pulled it up through that chain, but instead of yarning over again and doing a single crochet, I'm going to take that loop on the hook and I'm going to slip it through. That's why it's called a slip stitch. And there now I have created, you can see, pull that tight, I have created a chain that's now connected in a circle. Okay, so again, let me show you that. If you've made a chain of 4 or 5, depending on how large you want your circle to be, and usually we want it to be not bigger than that. We want it to stay pretty tight. Okay, so I've chained 4 or 5, and I'm going to insert my hook into that first chain, yarn over, but instead of pulling up that loop, I'm just going to take it and slip it through that original loop on my hook. And now I've made a circle. And then we would continue on with the pattern. We would say chain 1 and go from there. Okay? So that is an alternative way to make a magic circle. It's not my preferred way, but it is one way. All right? Now, let's say you wanted to make a sweet little bracelet to wear. Would you have to make a magic circle? No. If you wanted to crochet something that is tube-like, let's say, like a circle that doesn't have a bottom, like a basket, okay, then you can slip knot and chain however long you would want that bracelet to be. Let's say we're making a bracelet. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. I'm just going to chain as far as I think this will go around my wrist. And this is just a little bonus tip. If you are not quite ready for the magic circle, but you definitely want to make things that are round. Okay, so let's see. All right, I need to go a little further. So chain however many you think might go around your wrist, let's say. Okay. And if you're using much thicker yarn, then this bracelet would be thicker. Okay. All right, so let's say that is my bracelet, and that goes around my wrist, right? It's going to fit around my wrist. And then I would simply go to the end without this being twisted. You don't want it to be twisted up. So without twisting it, we go back to the beginning, chain, slip it in. Oh, that's my tail. Let me get my working yarn here. Slip it in, and then again do a slip knot. So instead of yarning over and making a single crochet stitch, we're just going to slip it through both of those loops. Okay, and that has created, you need to pull this tight, of course, maybe chain 1. Okay, and if that was the end of your bracelet, then you would fasten off, you would pull that long, you would cut that, and then knot that. And then you would take your tail and weave it in so you wouldn't see it. And so this creates a circle, as you can see. And if you wanted this bracelet just to have a single row, then you've made something in the round without having to make a magic circle to start. We just slip knotted and chained, and then slip stitched to our first chain. Okay? And then if you wanted this to be wider, then or another round on there, then you would, instead of fastening off, you would chain one. Let's say we're going to do single crochets. You would chain one. And then, as I've showed you in lessons before, it's very similar to working rows, but instead of going back and forth, you would be going all the way around with your single crochet stitches if you wanted this to be a little wider, right? And when you got back to the beginning, which again, marking that with a crochet stitch marker would let you know where your beginning is when working in the round, just like when we're working in rows and you know the end of your row. Working in rounds, it's important to know where you start so that you know where you're ending up. Okay, you could then do that. You could do another row, let's say of single crochet stitches, and come back around, slip stitch. And so if that was our method, let's say, that is going to create a seam. So every time we come back around, slip stitch to join, chain one, start another round of single crochet stitches, that is going to create a seam going up our work. Now, whether this is a bracelet or whatever you're making, you're going to see a seam. Now, let's say I wanted to make a basket. Well, this is just, if I made row after row after row, this is going to grow taller, but I wouldn't have a bottom. I don't have a bottom to it, right? So that's where the magic circle comes in, okay? Where we would want to make, in other words, a flat base or a flat circle where we're working pretty tightly in the round, going around and around, but it's simply growing a growing circle, okay? Not climbing higher, as in like a tube, like I just showed you if you were going to do a bracelet, okay? If that makes sense. So you might also see tutorials, and this is, again, just a little bonus tip, where you're working in the round, and instead of it creating a seam, because you might not want a seam to show, where you're joining each round as you go, some tutorials will show you how to work a spiral, where you wouldn't be slip stitching to end the row, you would just keep going. And that's going to create a spiral effect growing up your project. So that is another way where a seam then wouldn't be showing. But we're not going to get into that today. I'm going to show you now how I make a magic circle. You're going to see a lot of different ways to do it. And this is the way I've learned over the years works for me, and it's the way I'm going to teach you. And it's really quite simple. Okay, so as you know, I've taught you how to make a slip knot, right? Where we put the yarn over, we grab, and we pull that through, right? But then we pull that pretty tight and slip that onto our hook. Well, a magic circle is basically just a loose slip knot, and I'll show you what I mean, okay? So let's say that I have my yarn, and I'm acting like I'm about to make a slip knot, okay? So I'm going to, again, take my tail, put it over my right hand. I'm going to have this working yarn anchored. I'm going to twist, okay? My working yarn's right here. I'm going to pinch and pull through. Now, right here, see this loop right here? That's going to be the loop or the magic circle you're going to be working into. So we're going to keep that real loose. And this is where I take my left index finger and I leave it in there so my loop does not get too tight. My magic circle doesn't get too tight. And then this is going to be the working loop I put onto my hook. Okay, and then I'm going to kind of cinch everything up using these fingers here. And now I've got a magic circle to work in. It's basically just a loose slip knot. Let me show you that again. So we've got our tail, our working end, okay? Grab both of those ends, left hand, twist with the right, pinch the working yarn coming from your yarn ball, pull it through, put your left index finger into that magic circle loop, put your hook through this, which is going to be our working loop on the hook, and just pull everything tighter, but not too tight. And there we have a magic circle. Okay. And I'm hanging on here, working, that's our tail, working end of the yarn, and I'm using this finger, my left index finger and thumb, to kind of anchor that circle. Okay. All right. Now, okay, great. We've made the magic circle. Where do we go from here? Well, we have to chain one. So take that yarn over, again, put that in there so it doesn't cinch closed with your thumb, and just pull that through. Okay, and that started our magic circle. Now, why do we call it a magic circle? Because we're going to be working crochet stitches into the circle, around and around, and then we're going to take this tail and we're going to cinch it. We're going to pull it tight, and it's going to close up all of those stitches and make a perfect little circle. Okay, that's why I think they call it magic circle, because it cinches closed. Right now we do not want this cinched closed. We want it nice and wide and open so that we can work our stitches into it. Okay, so we've got our magic circle. And again, if you need to pause the video and just practice making that a few times, go ahead. But if you've got your magic circle, we're now going to just do a row of single crochet stitches. Okay, so we're going to put our hook into the middle of the circle and pull our yarn up from there. 2 loops on the hook, yarn over, pull through both. Then I'm going to take my stitch marker and I'm going to mark my first single crochet stitch in the magic circle. Okay, so don't get confused with your tail here. Your working yarn should be similar to what we've done before, and what you're pinching and anchoring is the magic circle. Okay, so there's not a lot to grab onto at this point. So this is usually where I anchor, right here. So we don't have any chains to put our hook into, do we? Like we would be doing in rows. We've made a magic circle to start. So we're just putting our hook into the magic circle and pulling up the yarn, which is our yarn over. Yarn over again, pull through 2 loops on the hook. There's our second crochet stitch, single crochet stitch into the magic circle. Put your hook into the circle, pull up the yarn, 2 loops on the hook. Make sure your hook is in the right position. Yarn over, anchor it with your thumb, pull through both loops, and there's our third. See, 1, 2, 3, our third crochet stitch, single crochet stitch into the magic circle. And we're going around, so you kind of turn it a little bit. 4th single crochet stitch. Okay, so we're just putting that hook into the circle to pull up the yarn, then yarning over to finish the single crochet stitch. And this would work for any stitch. Let's say I want to do a half double or a double crochet or a triple crochet stitch where we yarn over first. Well, I would simply yarn over, then insert my hook, pull up, 3 on the hook, right? To do a half double, I would then pull through all 3. So this works for any stitch. Either you're yarning over first or you're not, but this is where you're going into. You're putting your hook into the circle to make the stitch. Okay, so let's say we've come to the end. Now it still might be a little loose. If it gets too loose, you can pull this. but you don't want it too tight so where you can't see where you're putting your hook into, okay? So then what happens? Let's say that's the end of our row, and see, my stitch marker has marked the beginning. So I know going around the circle, the pattern said, you know, make 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 single crochet stitches. Then I'm done with this round. So we don't say row, we say round, okay? And I'm just simply going to take my stitch marker off, and I'm going to slip stitch. So that's when we insert our hook under the full V, yarn over, but we're not making a single crochet stitch here. We're making a slip stitch, which means you slip it through, and that is a joining stitch. Okay, it joins the row, or the round, I'm sorry. Okay, and then if we wanted to do another round, then we're going to chain 1 if we have a seam. Okay, if we're working in this spiral, then we would just not chain 1, and we would just start single crocheting into the very next stitch. But if we want a seam and we want our sides to be super straight, then I would chain 1 to start my next round of single crochet stitches. Okay, so I know earlier I said, well, we're going to cinch this up tight. And usually in tutorials, this is the point where we would say, okay, we're going to cinch this up real tight. So you're going to have to make your loop real big so it doesn't slip out. Okay, your working loop there. And you'll find your tail. This is the back side. And if you pull it tight, you'll see that it cinches it closed. Okay, and then we have a cute little circle there that we can work from to go on with our project, whatever project that is that you're making. And then this tail, once it's cinched, will then need to be weaved in. Okay, and I'll show you that when we start our hearts here in a moment. Okay. All right, so that's magic circle with 1 round of single crochet stitches, a slip stitch to join. Okay, and so I would practice that over and over and over, making the magic circle, putting some stitches into the circle, going around, slip stitching to join, and then maybe even fastening off and weaving in ends. So if we were to do that, we take our scissors, we would pull this long, we would snip that, we would take our darning needle, okay, and let's say we'll do that with our magic circle tail end. Just for demonstration purposes, you put that through your darning needle and you find the stitches going around and you really want to hide them in there. So we could go in here and I just go around a couple times and I hide them in those stitches there. That's 2 and 3. And I don't go back, I just continue going in the same direction. And usually 3 times is about right. And I've never had anything unravel. And then once you weave that in at least 1, 2, 3 times around, you can cut that off. And that will not go anywhere. Okay? All right. Now, I would love for you to keep practicing these skills. And if you really like this, I hope that you like and become a subscriber if you're brand new, and leave any comments below. And since this is getting a little lengthy, I think I will show you how to make a sweet little heart as a practice project in my next video. So go right on to that. It will say make a heart. And I will show you that quick little tutorial in my subsequent video. Thanks so much for crocheting along with me. I hope this was helpful, and keep practicing. See you next time.